Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. A real short article today, actually two that I wanted to go over since it's that time again. All right, I'll start off real quick, getting ready to work, so I'm going to make this a quick one so you guys can get the information without me blabbing too much, okay? First of all, thank you very much everyone yesterday who joined in the live chat on our premiere canning beef video, right? Had a lot of fun. The daylight savings time kind of messed up a little bit of what was going on, but thank you very much for those of you that joined in. And before we started, I wanted to say a big thank you to Beth, to Dee Dee, and to Stephanie, and also to an anonymous contributor who donated something through the Ko-fi app. All right, so thank you guys for buying me a coffee. Truly appreciate it. Those of you that want to support the channel, just take a look at the links and you can support the channel that way, along with, of course, leaving comments, liking, sharing. So thank you very much everyone. I don't want to take a lot of time to do this because I know people get impatient and they want me to get to the point right quick, which is fine. All right, but again, thank you very much to everyone that takes the time to support the channel in any way that you can. I truly do appreciate it. Okay, and this is the point of this video. The U.S. Treasury Secretary urges Congress to raise debt ceiling as soon as possible. Right, and it looks like this article is about 5 or so days old. All right, but I just came across it, and it says here, U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin on Monday urged congressional leaders to raise the federal debt limit as the department begins accounting maneuvers to avoid a default. This is a reoccurring story, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? In a letter addressed to top lawmakers, Mnuchin said the Treasury Department had begun a debt issuance suspension period, which will last for about 3 months. So pretty much saying that a debt issuance suspension period, I guess I read that as being as the government trying not to go into any more debt for the next few months, because the debt limit is so high and it needs to be raised again here come March 1st, all right, of this year. The Treasury Department had halted investments in certain benefits funds for federal workers and retirees, Mnuchin said, noting that once the debt limit is increased or suspended, those funds will be made whole. So you hear what he says here? Once the debt limit is increased or suspended, okay? I just don't understand why they even have a debt limit, you know? Because it's not going there, it's going to be increased, right? Everyone knows it. It's going to be increased, all right? And it's going to be increased on the backs of the citizens and future citizens of this country, right? Pretty much. I respectfully urge Congress to protect the full faith and credit of the United States by acting to increase the statutory debt limit as soon as possible, the Secretary said. The recipients of the letters included, I won't go through all the members of representatives here that included it, but they were the ones in the committee and Senate Finance Committee. The debt ceiling was previously set at 20.5 trillion US dollars, and Congress voted in February of 2018 to suspend the debt limit through March 1st of 2019 as part of a bipartisan budget deal, and the suspension will run out on Saturday. Well, it says here, and the suspension ran out on Saturday. Pretty much meaning that the suspended debt ceiling, that it is pretty much, that's it. They can't borrow any more money. That's what I read right here, right? All right. So really, we are operating right now without being able to borrow any money because our debt ceiling has already been reached, and the date of the suspension of the debt ceiling has been reached as well. The Treasury Department could run out of money by the end of September unless Congress takes action to either extend the suspension of debt limit or increase the limit, the Congressional Budget Office said last week. So now, ladies and gentlemen, they're not even trying to hide it. They're already putting this into words on every proposal they put out there. The suspend of the debt ceiling, right? Those words would have been unimaginable, a decade or two ago, for us to suspend the debt ceiling. Pretty much giving our lawmakers / representatives the ability to spend with a blank check. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, this is a bipartisan thing. I am pretty certain that both sides of the party, or at least the majority of both sides of what's called, the representatives, would love to have a debt ceiling that is non-existent. All right. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell told Congress in a testimony last week that it would be a very big deal for the U.S. government not to pay all the bills as and when due. That would be a big deal, but ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand this too, is that when the debt ceiling is raised, all right, and they borrow more money, and then the bonds or treasury bills or whatever it is, whatever instrument they use to borrow more money, whenever those instruments have to be liquidated, what occurs is it produces inflation. So it's not felt right away, but it will be felt. And eventually when we do start to feel it in a bad way, it'll be in a really bad way. All right. It's not just going to be, when this balloon pops, we're not going to be looking at inflation as stated by the official government numbers at 2.5%. We're not going to be looking at that. We're looking at inflation that's much higher as what's stated by the government. All right. Because the government excludes things like healthcare and inflation. They exclude things like a lot of the foods that we eat, that we need to eat. So for example, let's say that this year or last year, that a pound of steak cost $6, right? And then this year, a pound of steak costs $8. That's roughly a 30%, 33% increase, right? In steak. So what they do is they say, well, let's replace steak with hamburger. All right. And then they use those numbers to justify that inflation has not gone up as much as it really has gone up. Right. So that's the first one right here, this real quick article. All right. So I just wanted to let you guys know, in case some of you guys weren't tracking, that we have already surpassed our time limitation on the suspension of the debt limit. As you can see, we're already at about $22.1 trillion in debt. And ladies and gentlemen, just to put that into perspective, with the current interest rate that we're at right now, so the current federal interest rate, which I think is about 2.4%, right? We are paying on a monthly basis or on a daily basis. The United States spends on a daily basis roughly $1 billion+ just on interest payments. So think about that. Try to wrap that around your heads. The United States pays more. It's not roughly, it's more than $1 billion a day just on interest payments. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a quick look at this article. I'm not going to read the whole thing because a lot of it says what we already read, but what will happen? What happens when the debt ceiling is suspended? Essentially, the debt ceiling limits how much debt can be incurred by the government to sustain its operations. When a suspension occurs, the capping of debt is essentially turned off for 1 year, and the government can spend as needed until the period of suspension expires. So, like I said before, pretty much a blank check. The amount borrowed during the suspension gets added to the legal debt limit. All right, the Bipartisan Policy Center notes when the ceiling is reinstated, the debt will be close to $22 trillion. And this was written back in November of 2018. And they were right on. They were spot on in saying that the debt would be close to $22 trillion. So it's actually exceeded $22 trillion. What happens when the debt ceiling isn't raised? If the debt ceiling is reached and not raised, the U.S. Treasury is unable to issue or auction any more Treasury bills, bonds, or notes. Routine and ongoing government expenses can only be paid as income tax revenues are received. So pretty much what this is saying, ladies and gentlemen, is this is saying what would happen if a debt ceiling wasn't reached, if a new debt ceiling or a debt ceiling suspension wasn't reached. And pretty much what they're saying is that the government would actually have to act like any other household, all right? They would actually only be able to spend what comes in, all right? And I understand that a lot of households in the United States right now don't act in that same manner either, because a lot of households are burdened with credit card debt and multiple credit card debts. Okay, so the U.S. government is pretty much doing what the average American is doing. All right, the average American out there has multiple credit cards that have balances on them where they're paying interest on them. Same thing that the government's doing. All the government is doing right now by asking Congress to raise the debt ceiling is it's asking Congress to approve a new credit card. They're saying, hey, Congress, all the credit cards we have right now are maxed out. We take in enough in tax revenue to be able to pay the interest on those credit cards. So can you approve another credit card for us so we can open up another credit card and continue spending beyond and above our limits, all right? Beyond and above what we actually take in. Without the ability to expand beyond tax revenues, the Treasury Department must decide which debts to pay and postpone. This creates a ripple effect because if there isn't enough cash to go around, number one, federal employees can be furloughed. Number two, federal pension payments aren't sent. Number three, foreign lenders don't get paid. Number four, interest on the national debt cannot be paid. All right. So those are the four things right there that they use to try to scare us into ensuring that we don't make a fuss on the debt limit being raised or the debt ceiling being raised. Right? Essentially, a government shutdown occurs. If various segments of the national debt cannot be paid, the government must make some choices. Since the law prevents any borrowing from Social Security and Medicare, it turns to retirement funds. Wow, that's a really big surprise to me. It says since the law prevents any borrowing from Social Security and Medicare. You know, I don't understand that because about $5 or so trillion of our national debt is money that is owed to Social Security. So that one's got me there. I might have to look a little more into that because I don't understand that. Because about $5 or so trillion, maybe a little more, of the national debt that we have is called intragovernmental debt, meaning that the government borrowed from one department to fund another. All right, and Social Security is the biggest benefactor, or not benefactor, right? But is the department with the most intragovernmental debt owed to it. All right. And then it says here, or the government can withdraw money it keeps on hand up to $800 billion from the Federal Reserve Bank. U.S. will default on its debts without a ceiling increase. Congress must raise the ceiling so the U.S. government doesn't default on its debt. If a debt does occur, three things may happen. If a default does occur, three things may happen. Number one, the government could no longer make monthly payments affecting the ability to pay past and future obligations. The yields of Treasury notes sold on the secondary market will rise, creating higher interest rates. And a market panic occurs and owners of U.S. Treasury will dump their holdings, dropping the dollar's value. So you see, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. I'll go ahead and leave these two articles linked in the bottom of the description if you guys want to go take a look at it. Pretty much what it comes to is we're in a catch-22 situation, or we're in between a rock and a hard place, however you want to put it. All right. The debt ceiling is raised. What's going to happen is the government's going to keep spending money that we, the citizens, don't have, all right? And that the government doesn't have because it doesn't collect enough in taxes to spend everything that it spends. Okay, so what happens when the government spends money it doesn't have? They create treasury bonds, all right? They create treasury notes, they sell bonds, all right? And then those financial instruments get put into a vault somewhere where one day they will be liquidated. When the day that they get liquidated comes, all of that new money, all right, is going to start flooding the market, all right? It's kind of like a trickle down in a way. It'll start flooding the market, and inflation will take place, all right? Depending on the speed at which those bonds are liquidated, Treasury notes, bonds are liquidated, all right, will depend on the speed of the inflation, notwithstanding any other outside forces, you know, like natural disasters or things like that that may impede the availability of resources or manufactured products to the, you know, to the public, right? Because you know that the law of supply and demand also acts on inflation, on how much things are valued at, all right? So they're going to end up devaluing the dollar. So the dollar will end up being devalued, all right? And if they don't get the debt ceiling increase, what's going to happen, all right? Same thing. They're going to default on loans, on obligations, and then the interest rates on bonds and on bonds will go up, which what happens when that happens? The dollar is devalued. So either way, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a no-win situation when it comes to this country's debt and this country's spending habits, all right? We will, I believe, all right, in my lifetime, all right, and I'm only of middle age, all right, we will see a new U.S. currency. And every time that that happens throughout history, there is pain and suffering, okay? And usually those that suffer the most are the middle class, right? The middle class and the poor. Of course, that the people that are elites and that have millions or billions of dollars, they are not going to feel the kind of suffering that we are going to feel, all right? So this is why it is so important for all of us to heed the warning, all right? This is just a little blip on the radar. I'm not sure if, I don't really watch mainstream media, but I'm not sure how much this is being reported or if it's been reported at all in any mainstream media channels. But these are the kind of articles that we really need to look out for so that we can learn how to protect ourselves, because they're not going to stop until the system collapses, right? I truly feel that this monetary system that we are under right now, and it's pretty much throughout the world, right? Not every single country, but almost every single country. This fiat monetary system that we are living under, that we are living with right now, right, was made in order for it to fail, right? Because we've borrowed so much energy from the future that we can never realistically pay it back, right? All of those trillions of dollars that we owe and that all these other countries owe, you have to look at that as if it were energy, okay? All of those trillions of dollars is energy that we've borrowed from the future. And how do we pay that back? With the expenditure of energy, all right? In order to make something, we need to expend energy. So when we say that all of this money is being borrowed on the backs of our children, it's true, because they themselves will be enslaved to a system which will require them to expend their energy to pay back the energy that we've borrowed from the future. All right, so I think if you look at it that way, it may make a little more sense to you as to why it's such a big deal. Because some people will just say, well, just keep spending, just keep spending, just keep spending. It doesn't matter, all right, because it's not real. In a way, it's not real, all right? The money in a way is not real, but the effects, all right, of what will happen when this system goes down will be very real to everyone. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I said I'd make this one a short one, so it's Monday morning. I hope you guys are having a good Monday so far, and I hope that you had a great weekend. Again, thank you very much for those of you that support the channel. I truly do appreciate every one of you, and thank you for joining in today for these few minutes. All right, I hope you have a great day. Having said that, remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. A quick note, I'm still trying to see if we have an artist in our community that can take the design of the t-shirt that I put up. in that link. You'll see the link in the description. If you can go take a look at the t-shirt, all right, and see if you can take that design and improve on it, or send some, you know, artwork that, you know, you would not mind donating to, you know, to the channel, so that we can put out nicer t-shirts that you guys may like better. That would be awesome, all right, if we had some artists out there. I know we probably do, all right? So again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Many blessings to all of you and your families. This is Alaska Prepper, and I'm out.